Hello, I'm continuing my quest to discover Tudor Prescot and find little towns and villages that would give us some indication of how Prescot appeared in the days of William Shakespeare. I'm outside the Bull's Head in Bidford-upon-Avon, and Shakespeare came here. And he had drinking competitions apparently with his mates, and he he woke up after a drinking binge one night. He woke up and he described this town as a drinking town. This is a drinking town, and if you look back on the history of Prescot, Prescot was considered also to be a drinking town. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look around Bidford-upon-Avon and see if there's any similarities here to Prescot at all. If we can, if we can glean anything from the history of Bidford to the history of Prescot. So let's have a look round. My first impression of Bidford-on-Avon when I first arrived was this sleepy, chocolate boxy little market town. It's about 8 miles outside of Stratford-upon-Avon and is locally described as a large village, but in Shakespeare's day it was known as a town. It sits on the banks of the River Avon and it's in Warwickshire, a lovely little place. It's said to have date back to Saxon times, but it could go back further than that. Now, William Shakespeare is said to have joined a party of Stratford folk which set itself out to outdrink the local drinking club in Bidford, and as a result of his labours he had fallen asleep under a crabapple tree, of which a descendant of that tree is still there in the village today, and it's called the Shakespeare tree. When morning dawned and Shakespeare realised that his Stratford team had not won this drinking contest, his friends wished to renew the encounter, but he said wisely, "No, I will not drink no more with drunken Bidford." In Shakespeare's day, there was said to be about 15 pubs in Bidford. That's a poor showing in comparison to Prescot's pubs, which numbered over 20. There was so much concern about the alehouses in Prescot. In 1592, the Lord Provost of the King's College, Cambridge, came to Prescot to investigate the abuses that had been reported to him with regards to the alehouses, particularly towards gambling and the abuse of watered down ale. Apparently it was something that Prescot got up to, watering down the ale. Never heard of the like. You wouldn't get that today, would you? This was one of Shakespeare's favourite pubs, the Falcon Inn. It's now a townhouse, but it does date from the 1400s. It's said to be the very same pub where Shakespeare had his drinking competition with the locals. By all accounts, Shakespeare's lot lost, and the rest is history. Shakespeare's days as a professional drunk were numbered. Or were they? This is the main square around Bidford, and in very many ways it's like Marketplace. It reminds me of Marketplace and how Marketplace must have been during the Elizabethan period. You've got the Church of St. Lawrence just over there, and you've got the pub, obviously the Bull's Head here, and a similar thing. You can see how the medieval town of Prescot has developed around the church and the markets that grew around that area. So in very many ways it is like a medieval Prescot, and the buildings, I suppose, reflect the buildings that you would have seen in Tudor time in Prescott. A hiddly-piddly lot of buildings from stone buildings, and then you get the Tudor half timber buildings and various things like that. So yeah, it's very similar in many ways to that, I think. Now, it's obvious to me, looking around the marketplace here in Bidford, that Bidford is of Anglo-Saxon origin, and if I just impose the map of Prescot now from 1592, you'll see it's of a particular style, and most of all it's circular, and you can see how it's developed from around the church. It's a particular Anglo-Saxon feature, and you can find this throughout the country. And if you compare the same map to the one of Bidford, you'll see similarities. Anglo-Saxon towns were basically circular in shape, and they had these streets radiating from the church, and that's where the market would place. And you find this time and time again throughout the country, this Anglo-Saxon look about it, you know. Remember in the last video where I was talking about Eccleston Street being over about 800 years old? Well, this is exactly the point I was trying to make about the ancient structure of Prescot. And the thing that struck me about walking around Bidford, it's a very pretty village, but I kept thinking that this is what Prescot must have looked in perhaps the Georgian period, about 250 years ago, where you'd have Georgian buildings mixed with Tudor buildings, mixed with older buildings. And Bidford is very much like that. It reminded me of a time, almost looking back into Prescot's past, going round here. There would have been loads, about 250 years ago, probably about the time of John Philip Kemble, there would have been loads of Tudor buildings mixed with modern Georgian buildings, mixed with very ancient buildings. It was like looking into the past. I was quite pleased that I'd gone here actually and looked for similarities, because I found quite a lot of them. This particular crossroads, very busy junction, well, Prescot was at a very busy junction as well, and at the crossroads between many trading routes around the northwest. So, oh yes, Billy Shears. There's a link. Well, to Liverpool anyway. We all know Billy Shears. Well, there's one in Bidford. Lovely Tudor building. This one's up for sale, if you've got a few grand. I wouldn't mind living there. It's a really nice property, that. It's lovely. Yeah, there's loads of these buildings, loads of lovely Georgian townhouses around Bidford as well. Just as there must have been around Prescot. But they had a different history. Prescot became very industrialised and involved in the Industrial Revolution, which was happening in the northwest of England. So we were at the centre of the modern world, of creating the modern world. And Prescot did, create some world-class industry, and craftspeople came from Prescot. Very innovative place, punching well above its weight for such a small town. They're beautiful, these houses. It's worth going there. I think if Shakespeare was around today and he'd have a look around, he would certainly recognise some of these buildings. A lot of them he wouldn't, because a lot of these now here that we're looking at are Georgian buildings. So these are from the 1750s, early 1800s. So yeah, it's got two Grade 1 listed structures in Bidford, one being the church of St Lawrence, and the other one being the bridge that I'm actually standing on now, which is a 14th century bridge, ancient bridge, with these little passing ways so you don't get hit by cars. Yeah, we could do with a few of them now, couldn't we? When we think about Tudor drinking towns, it's worth casting our minds back and using a bit of imagination of how it must have been back then. If we take, for example, the year 1556, there were in Prescot 22 alehouses in Prescot for a population of only 300 people. Now, why were there so many alehouses? Well, many reasons really. If you consider it was often safer to drink ale than to drink the water, it was more healthier for you. And also, a lot of these people who were coming into the town would come in from villages far and wide. They were mostly agricultural workers, and they would come into these local towns and the pubs and alehouses and make merry. And that's it. And working people have done that for generations. They do it today. We go into town or we go into anywhere and we let off steam, from our working lives, and that's what they did back then. If we look at the numbers again, like I said, in 1556 there was 300 people population and 22 alehouses. By the time of 1626 there was 43 alehouses in Prescot. It was a growing concern, and you can see why the Lord Provost and Lord Derby and the King's College were so concerned about drinking in Prescot. It always seems strange to me that actors, and William Shakespeare was so attracted to drinking towns. It seems to have followed him all his life, and indeed it's said that when he died in 1616, it was because he'd been out on an all-night binge with his mate Ben Jonson and others, and he basically collapsed and died. He was drunk. He did like a few drinks, William Shakespeare, I must say. And if you do study his plays at all, you'll realise that he loved writing for drunks and fools and stuff like that. Yeah, it's all over his work. To say he was obsessed by drink is a bit of an overstatement, perhaps, but yeah, it certainly made the creative juices flow. He was only 52 when he died, by the way, and he actually died on the 23rd of April, 1616. That must have been both a good and not so good night for William Shakespeare. But what a great legacy he left us with. Good old Will. Yeah, a drinker to the end. So, I hope you've enjoyed this look around Bidford. Join us next time when I hope to do more of these vlogs and have a look and see if we can glean anything from them that could give us an insight into Tudor Prescot. Okay. Bye for now. Bye. Tickets from £3. Isn't that amazing? That's cheaper than the Globe. And, you know, for the groundlings.
I am the project producer here at Shakespeare North Playhouse.
And let me the cannakin clink, clink, clink. And let me the cannakin clink, clink, clink. A lice but a span, a soldier's a man. Why then let a soldier drink, clink, clink. Why then let a soldier drink, clink, clink.